Why was Otto Hightower imprisoned? House of the Dragon Season 3 explained. Why was Otto Hightower imprisoned in House of the Dragon Season 3? After years of manipulating the politics of Westeros, Otto Hightower eventually finds himself on the opposite side of the power he once helped create. For most of House of the Dragon, Otto was one of the most powerful political figures in King's Landing. He served as Hand of the King. He helped put Aegon II on the Iron Throne. He helped organize the Green faction, and he spent years trying to prevent Rhaenyra Targaryen from inheriting the crown. But by Season 3, the political world Otto helped create has collapsed around him. And when Rhaenyra's forces gain control of King's Landing, Otto becomes a prisoner. So why was he imprisoned? And why did Rhaenyra consider Otto such a dangerous enemy? The answer goes all the way back to the beginning of the Dance of the Dragons. Otto Hightower was never simply an advisor. He was a political strategist. His greatest weapon was not a sword or a dragon. It was information. Otto understood that controlling the people around the king could be just as powerful as controlling the king himself. That is why he pushed his daughter, Alicent Hightower, closer to King Viserys. Eventually, Alicent became Viserys' second wife. Their marriage produced several children, including Aegon. And once Aegon was born, Otto saw an opportunity. Viserys had named Rhaenyra as his heir, but Westerosi traditions strongly favored male succession. Aegon was the king's firstborn son. Otto therefore believed that Aegon could become a legitimate alternative to Rhaenyra. There was also a personal reason. Otto feared that if Rhaenyra became queen, Aegon and Alicent's other children could eventually be viewed as threats. He repeatedly warned Alicent that Rhaenyra might have no choice but to eliminate potential rivals. Whether Otto was genuinely protecting his grandchildren or using their safety to justify his political ambitions is one of the biggest questions surrounding his character. But when Viserys died, Otto finally acted. He and the Green Council kept the king's death secret. They located Aegon, they convinced him to accept the crown, and they crowned him king before Rhaenyra even knew her father had died. That decision effectively began the Dance of the Dragons. Otto became Hand of the King again, and he initially tried to fight the war through politics. He wanted to isolate Rhaenyra. He wanted to convince the great houses to support Aegon. He wanted to avoid destroying the realm unnecessarily. But Rhaenyra refused to surrender, and the war became increasingly violent. Eventually, Otto's cautious approach began frustrating Aegon. Aegon wanted results. He wanted Rhaenyra defeated, and he increasingly believed Otto was too focused on diplomacy. The relationship between grandfather and grandson deteriorated. Otto was eventually removed from his position as Hand. That was a major humiliation. The man who had spent decades controlling the politics of King's Landing was suddenly pushed aside by the very king he had placed on the throne. But Otto's biggest problem was still ahead. Rhaenyra eventually captured King's Landing. Once the city fell, the political order Otto had created collapsed. The Blacks took control of the capital. Aegon was forced to flee. The Greens lost their hold over the city. And Otto, as one of the architects of Aegon's coronation, became an obvious target. To Rhaenyra, Otto was not simply an elderly politician. He was one of the people responsible for stealing her throne. Remember what happened after Viserys died. Rhaenyra was still the heir, but Otto and the Green Council secretly crowned Aegon. From Rhaenyra's perspective, that was an act of treason. Otto had participated directly in the conspiracy that placed another person on the throne. So when Rhaenyra's forces eventually gained control, Otto could not simply walk away. He was captured and imprisoned. And this is why his imprisonment has such symbolic importance. Otto is essentially being forced to experience the consequences of the political game he spent decades playing. He believed that he could manipulate succession. He believed that he could control the outcome. He believed that political strategy could protect his family. But eventually, the same system he manipulated turned against him. And Rhaenyra's treatment of Otto is also deeply personal. She remembers him as the man who repeatedly challenged her position. He was the one who questioned her suitability to rule. He was the one who pushed Viserys to consider Daemon a threat.
He was the one who promoted Alicent. He was the one who helped crown Aegon. So when Otto becomes Rhaenyra's prisoner, it represents a reversal of their entire relationship. For years, Otto had controlled the king's court. Now, he is sitting in a cell. The man who once decided who had access to the king can no longer decide anything for himself. And there is another important detail. Otto's imprisonment isn't simply about revenge. Rhaenyra also needs information. The war is still continuing. The Greens are still fighting. Aegon is still alive. And Otto knows the Green political structure better than almost anyone. He knows who supports Aegon. He knows which lords might be willing to negotiate. He knows how the Green Council operates. He knows the weaknesses of the people who helped put Aegon on the throne. That makes him valuable as a prisoner. But Otto refuses to become useful to Rhaenyra. This is important because Otto has spent his entire life operating according to political principles. Even when he is imprisoned, he doesn't suddenly beg for mercy. He remains defiant. He believes his actions were justified. From Otto's perspective, Rhaenyra's claim was dangerous. From Rhaenyra's perspective, Otto helped steal her birthright. Neither side sees itself as the villain. That is one of the central themes of the Dance of the Dragons. Everyone believes they are fighting for something legitimate, and everyone believes the other side is responsible for the destruction. Otto's imprisonment, therefore, becomes more than a punishment. It is a symbol of the collapse of the Green political order. The man who helped create Aegon's reign is now locked away while Aegon's enemies control the capital. The Hightowers are losing influence. Alicent is losing power. Aegon's position is collapsing. And Otto can no longer manipulate events from the center of King's Landing.
But what makes this even more tragic is that Otto's original goal was supposedly to protect his family. He believed placing Aegon on the throne would secure the Hightowers' future. Instead, the war destroys the stability he was trying to create. Alicent loses her children. Aegon is badly injured. Aemond becomes increasingly destructive. The Targaryen family begins destroying itself, and Otto ends up imprisoned. His political victory turns into a personal disaster. There is also an important distinction between Otto's imprisonment and his eventual fate. Being imprisoned does not mean that Rhaenyra immediately kills him. His ultimate fate comes later. In the larger story of the dance, Otto is eventually executed after the political situation changes again. But his imprisonment is the moment when his position in the war becomes completely reversed. He goes from being one of the most powerful men in Westeros to a captive whose future is controlled by the woman he spent years trying to keep away from the throne. That is why Otto's Season 3 storyline matters. It isn't simply Otto was captured. It is the culmination of his entire political strategy. For years, Otto believed that the Iron Throne could be controlled through careful manipulation. He used marriage, he used information, he used alliances, he used the royal council, he used Aegon, and eventually all of those decisions came back to him. When Rhaenyra takes King's Landing, Otto is no longer the man making the decisions. He is the prisoner. The strategist becomes the captive. The hand becomes powerless. And the man who helped start the war is forced to watch the consequences unfold from behind bars. So why was Otto Hightower imprisoned in House of the Dragon Season 3? Because Rhaenyra's forces captured King's Landing, and Otto, as one of the principal architects of Aegon's usurpation, was taken prisoner. He was considered a major political enemy of Rhaenyra. His involvement in crowning Aegon made him especially important. And because he knew so much about the Green faction, keeping him alive also had strategic value. But there is a deeper reason his imprisonment feels so significant. Otto Hightower spent his entire life believing that he could control the future of Westeros. He helped create the Green faction. He helped put Aegon on the Iron Throne. He believed he was protecting his family. But eventually, the war he helped create became too powerful for even him to control.
And when Rhaenyra finally gained the upper hand, Otto found himself exactly where he had spent his life trying to make sure his enemies would never be, a prisoner of the crown. His imprisonment is therefore not just another event in the Dance of the Dragons. It is the moment when Otto Hightower's